Do you feel it? That tightness in your chest that shows up without warning. The restless mind, as if it's trying to run from something you can't even identify. The steady fear that something will go wrong, even when everything seems perfectly fine. And what makes it harder is that no one around you truly understands what's happening inside. You smile and say you're okay, yet internally it feels like you're shouting and no one can hear you. Pause for a moment. What if the anxiety that overwhelms you each day is not the real issue? What if it is only a sign of something much deeper trying to rise from your psyche? Carl Jung, one of the leading figures in depth psychology, argued that anxiety is not a personal weakness, a disorder, or merely a chemical imbalance. In his view, anxiety is a signal from the soul, indicating that parts of your personality have been ignored, suppressed, or rejected for so long that they are now pushing back with intensity. Have you ever asked yourself why anxiety appears without a clear cause? Why, even when you try to manage your thoughts, practice meditation, breathe slowly, or follow simple advice like just think positive, the feeling stays like an unseen force following you. It may be because you're trying to silence the messenger instead of understanding the message. Jung stated that neurosis is always a replacement for genuine suffering. In other words, anxiety develops when you avoid something that must be faced, an unresolved wound, a difficult reality, or a side of yourself that you had deep within your mind, hoping never to deal with again. But the psyche operates differently. Anxiety is the alarm. This video is not a superficial self-help guide. I am not here to promise that everything will work out, because it might not, especially if you continue to ignore what your inner self is trying to communicate. This video serves as a mirror, and if you have the courage to look into it until the end, you may discover something no one has clearly shown you before. The real meaning behind your anxiety and how it can shift from being an enemy to becoming a guide. The decision is yours. Will you keep avoiding it, or will you face what continues to trouble you? The anxiety you experience is not accidental. It did not appear without cause. And it is certainly not only a chemical imbalance, despite what you may have been led to believe. For Jung, psychological symptoms are symbolic signals of processes unfolding deep within the psyche. Anxiety, in particular, suggests that you are in conflict with yourself. This conflict is not conscious. It is a hidden, archetypal tension between the forces that shape who you truly are and the version of yourself you present to the world. Jung proposed that every human being carries universal archetypes, ancient patterns that exist within the collective unconscious. These are not merely myths or abstract symbols. They are active influences that shape your thinking, feelings, choices, and even your deepest fears. When these archetypes clash, you experience the effects. When you deny one of them, when you reject the shadow, the self, or the call of your inner hero, the psyche does not stay quiet. It reacts. And one of the most common expressions of that reaction is anxiety. Anxiety is not simply the result of overthinking. It emerges from disconnection. When the ego, the part you tied to your social identity, daily structure, and sense of control, loses connection with the unconscious, an internal division forms. As a result, you begin to feel uncertain, even without a clear reason. You feel afraid of the future, even when everything appears relatively stable. There is a sense of emptiness that nothing seems to satisfy, not success, not relationships, not distractions. Why does this happen? Because the unconscious is attempting to restore balance. It is trying to draw your attention inward. When you live only to meet external expectations, protect an image, or follow a script you never chose for yourself, you begin to deny your deeper nature. What is rejected does not disappear. It first appears as discomfort, then as anxiety, and if continually ignored, it can lead to breakdown. Jung did not consider anxiety an enemy. He understood it as a symbolic messenger carrying a call toward individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. For that to happen, however, you must recognize that anxiety contains meaning. It represents a metaphor, a symbol. Something within you is ending so that another part can emerge. Yet the ego resists this change and attempts to hold its ground. This is where the real conflict exists. Do you feel as if you're losing control? It may be because control was never as solid as you believed. Only a perception of stability. Anxiety reveals the gap between who you truly are and the role you are currently playing. As long as that gap remains unexamined, the sense of emptiness will continue to expand. So what exists in that gap? What has been denied, suppressed, or forgotten? In the next section, we will explore more deeply the hidden layers of your psyche to understand the connection between anxiety and the shadow. And by confronting it directly, you may realize that your anxiety was never meant to harm you, but to awaken you. If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your support. You were trained to be acceptable. From an early age, you learned that certain emotions were inappropriate, certain thoughts were shameful, and certain impulses had to be controlled. You learned to smile when you wanted to shout, to act calmly when you felt anger, and to appear confident when you were struggling inside. Gradually, you built a persona, a social mask, and pushed aside everything that did not fit that image. But here's the reality no one clearly explained. What you pushed down did not disappear. It is still active within you. Jung referred to this hidden dimension as the shadow. The shadow represents everything you prefer not to identify with, yet still carry. The feelings you deny, but continue to experience. It is fear expressed as irritation, anger expressed as silence, insecurity expressed as excessive control. When you try to exist only in ways that are socially approved, you become controlled by that shadow, and it expresses itself in one of the most common forms available, anxiety. In this sense, anxiety functions as an internal alarm activated by the rejected parts of your personality. It is a shadow pressing against your awareness, asking to be acknowledged. The more you avoid it, the stronger its signals become. You may experience a racing heart, sweating, sleeplessness, or repetitive thoughts, yet struggle to understand the cause. That is because you are focused on the symptoms rather than the source. And the source lies in the unconscious, where the shadow remains suppressed, restricted, and seeking recognition. Have you ever wondered why your reactions sometimes feel exaggerated? Why small challenges make you panic? Why you undermine yourself just when things seem to be going well? It's not bad luck. It's not weakness. It's the shadow attempting to restore balance within your psyche. It is signaling that you cannot continue pretending it doesn't exist. Here's the harsh reality. Society often reinforces this disconnection from your shadow. It rewards productivity, confidence, and maintaining appearances. But that polished image comes at a steep price. It costs your authenticity, your emotional health, and your inner peace. Jung observed that enlightenment is not achieved by imagining figures of light, but by bringing the darkness into awareness. The true resolution for anxiety is not in removing symptoms, but in confronting the reality they reveal. And that reality is uncompromising. You have built your identity on only part of your soul, while the rest now demands acknowledgement. But how do you engage with the part of yourself you fear? How do you dialogue with the shadow without being overwhelmed? The answer begins with the body. Before the shadow emerges as thought, it first appears as sensation, anxiety, tension, physical discomfort. Your body carries a conflict that your mind refuses to acknowledge. In the next section, we will explore how anxiety is not merely in your head, but deeply embedded in your body, acting as a battleground between who you are and who you are trying to be. Anxiety lodges in the body, in muscles so tense you barely notice, in a stomach that tightens without cause, in a chest that burns as if something might explode, in the throat that blocks you from expressing your feelings. These are not merely physical symptoms. They are psychic signals, expressions of the conflict between the ego seeking control and the soul seeking freedom. Jung believed that the body mirrors the unconscious. When repressed content finds no symbolic outlet, through dreams, art, writing, or inner dialogue, it emerges in raw, somatic ways. Anxiety is among the most intense and undeniable forms of this bodily manifestation. It is a voice of the soul, ignored for too long, now erupting through the body. How often have you felt your body react as if in danger, even when you know rationally that everything is fine? This is the unconscious trying to take control, because your conscious mind is no longer listening. Your nervous system shifts into high alert, as if a predator is nearby, but the predator is not outside. It is within. It is a repressed material of your psyche, now so intense that it demands expression through physical urgency. This is why surface-level techniques rarely provide lasting relief. Deep breathing, cold showers, or positive thinking may offer temporary comfort, but they do not address the root cause. The problem is not the body itself. It is a severed connection between body and soul. Anxiety is the body's way of compensating for a silent soul. Jung emphasized that the body is symbolic, the stage where the psyche's deepest dramas unfold. An anxious body carries hidden truths, emotions left unexpressed, traumas unnamed, needs unheard. Each symptom represents a desperate effort by the unconscious to reveal what must finally be acknowledged and integrated. You live in constant exhaustion, not just because your daily routine is demanding, but because your soul is engaged in a hidden, ongoing struggle. This inner conflict comes at a cost. Chronic tension, sleepless nights, diffuse pain, and a persistent sense of threat. Your body is signaling for reconnection, for attention, for honesty. But how you transform a body into an ally instead of perceiving it as an enemy? How do you shift from a mindset of fighting and controlling symptoms to one of listening and integration? In the next section, we will examine the true antidote to this suffering, the journey of individuation. This profound path, as proposed by Jung, turns anxiety from a burden into a guide. You are not here merely to survive. You are here to become your authentic self. Yet, no one taught you how. From an early age, you were molded to fit patterns, expectations, and social norms. You learned to adapt, to be accepted, to stay silent, to avoid conflict, and to follow rules authored by forces you never questioned. In the process, you lost sight of who you truly are. You lost your center. It is in this gap, between your authentic self and the self crafted to please others, that anxiety is born. Jung described the return to the self as a journey of individuation. Do not confuse it with selfishness or superficial self-assertion. Individuation is a profound, sometimes harsh process of reconnecting with everything you have rejected in yourself. It is the restoration of your wholeness. And it is this process of restoration that begins to dissolve anxiety, not as a symptom to be suppressed, but as an alert that has finally been acknowledged. To individuate is to accept that there are parts of yourself that have been forgotten, wounded, or silenced, and that they are seeking reintegration. It is to face the shadow, recognize the massive persona, and understand the archetypes that shape your most intimate decisions. It is to stop asking, "How should I be?" and start asking, "Who am I really?" Do not mistake this path for an easy one. It requires confronting old fears, painful truths, and unresolved choices. It demands stripping away the idealized image you have built and facing the fragmented self you left behind. In this context, anxiety is not the enemy. It is the guide. It signals the areas where you are still living half-heartedly, still pretending, still afraid to be fully yourself. Jung emphasized that true healing occurs when the individual becomes who they are. This involves letting go of the need to please, control, or meet external expectations. It requires making peace with your history, your traumas, and both your light and darkness. It is about integration, not exclusion. As this process unfolds, something profound happens. Anxiety begins to dissolve, not because it has been defeated, but because you have finally understood its message. Anxiety was never the problem. It was a map, a signal, a call from the soul saying, "Wake up, come home, be whole." The question now is practical. How do you begin this process? How do you move out of autopilot and start this journey authentically? How do you transform suffering into symbolic insight and communicate with the unconscious without being overwhelmed by it? In the next section, we will explore the tools Jung left with his reconnection: symbolic rituals, silence, dreams, and the transformative power of solitude. Forgotten tools exist in a world that only knows how to rush, but these tools may hold the key to your inner freedom. You have been trained to seek quick fixes: a sleeping pill, a motivational podcast, a 5-minute video with tips to control anxiety. But here's a truth that may be hard to accept. There is no instant cure for suffering that developed over years. What exists is a process that begins when you quiet your mind, listen to yourself, and allow yourself to explore the unseen. Jung did not view humans as machines that need repairing, but as fragmented souls in need of integration. For this, 3 practices are essential: silence, symbolism, and solitude. In our noisy world, silence has become a rare luxury. Yet for Jung, silence was a doorway to dialogue with the unconscious. While you fill your life with distractions, notifications, duties, and the opinions of others, the most vital voice, your own, remains unheard. Silence is not emptiness. It is a portal. In silence, repressed content surface. Symbols begin to form, and dreams regain their meaning. Silence is the language of the soul, and it is in this quiet space that symbolism enters. Jung emphasized that the unconscious communicates through symbols, images carrying profound meanings, often beyond a grasp of rational logic. Have you ever woken from a disturbing dream and wondered what it meant, or felt an unusual connection to a song, an image, or a seemingly insignificant memory? These are symbols. They do not appear by chance. They are fragments of your soul trying to say, I am here. Notice me. Interpreting these symbols is an act of psychic alchemy. You need to learn to perceive what lies beneath the surface. A dream of falling may signal a fear of losing control. A constant heaviness on your shoulders may represent responsibilities that do not belong to you. Anxiety itself is a symbol, a sign that there's a gap between how you live and who you truly are. None of this can be accessed without solitude. But note, solitude is not isolation. Isolation is escape. Solitude is presence. It is a sacred space where you can stop performing and start listening. Jung saw solitude as an essential ritual for transformation. In solitude, the ego loses its illusion of control, and the self begins to emerge. It is there that dreams are revealed, symbols take shape, and inner chaos begins to find meaning. Silence, symbolism, and solitude, these are the tools of the true alchemist of the soul. If you want to break the cycle of anxiety, you must stop seeking answers outside and start listening to what is arising from within. Understanding this is not enough. The hardest part is to act, to integrate, to live the change. This requires a difficult choice. Continue pretending that everything is fine, or take full responsibility for your own transformation. In the final section, we reach the culmination of this journey, the decisive moment when you confront your anxiety and realize it was never the villain in your story. It was your teacher. Now the choice is yours. Will you continue to run, or will you finally face the truth? It is time to stop deceiving yourself. See your anxiety not as an unfair burden, but as a brutal mirror life has placed before you. Everything you felt, the tightness in your chest, the silent anguish, the sense that you might crumble, was not a failure. They were signs, internal cries for reconnection, wholeness, and truth. You've spent your life trying to fit in, to be enough, to appear successful. But anxiety does not want you to look good. It wants you to be. It did not arise to destroy you. It emerged because something inside you was already fractured and needed to be rebuilt. And that process is not painless. It hurts because it requires detachment. It demands letting go of masks, roles, and old versions of yourself that you carried simply to survive. But you were never meant to merely survive. You came to live fully, to reclaim the person you were before the world shaped you with fear and conditioning. That's why Jung said, what you resist persists, what you accept transforms. Anxiety remains because you are still resisting your truth, your shadow, your legitimate pain. The turning point comes when you choose to answer the call of your soul instead of running from discomfort. Now the choice is yours. You can continue seeking distractions, fleeing from yourself, or numbing your feelings with temporary fixes. Or you can pause, breathe deeply, and begin the real process. Deep, symbolic, transformative. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Your soul is already exhausted from living half-heartedly. If this video resonated with you, write a simple sentence in the comments. I choose to look within. This is more than words. It is a commitment, a pact with yourself, and share your experience. Your voice may become the mirror someone else needs to awaken. If you've reached this point, don't stop here. The next video continues this journey. Transformation doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens when you keep going, even when every part of you wants to give up. Click on the next video. The journey is only beginning.